In the middle of a freezing winter night, when the world outside was buried under layers of snow and silence, an elderly woman sat alone by her fireplace, the faint crackle of wood her only companion. Her days were quiet, her nights colder, filled with memories of a love long gone and a home that once echoed with laughter. But fate has a way of sending warmth in the most unexpected form, because that night, through the whispering winds, she heard it, a faint cry from the darkness outside. It wasn't the wind, it wasn't her imagination, it was the desperate meow of life struggling to survive. Barefoot in her slippers, she stepped into the storm, guided only by her lantern and her heart. And what she found beneath the old oak tree would melt even the coldest soul. A shivering mother cat curled around her tiny kittens, covered in snow, too weak to move. In that frozen moment, two worlds met, one lonely, one helpless, both in need of warmth. And as she wrapped them in her scarf and whispered, "You're safe now," the snow kept falling. But her heart began to thaw, because sometimes the greatest rescues don't happen in shelters or hospitals. They happen when a broken heart decides to love again. And that night, in the quiet glow of her little cottage, love returned, not as a person, but as a purring miracle wrapped in fur. The village slept under a thick white blanket of silence. Snowflakes danced through the night like whispers of forgotten dreams. Inside a tiny wooden cottage at the edge of town, an old woman sat alone. Her wrinkled hands trembled as she poured tea for no one but herself. The fire crackled, casting shadows that looked like ghosts of her past. Her husband had been gone for years, her children far away. The ticking of the clock was her only conversation. Outside, the wind howled like a cry from another world. She closed her eyes and sighed, whispering a prayer for peace. But destiny had other plans for her lonely winter night. Through the window, she thought she heard a faint sound, almost a cry. At first, she ignored it, thinking it was the storm playing tricks again. But the sound came again. Softer this time, yet full of pain. Her heart, though old, still carried the warmth of kindness. She reached for her coat, wrapping her scarf around her fragile neck. With a lantern in one hand and courage in the other, she stepped outside. The snow bit at her skin, the cold cutting through her bones, but the sound, that soft, helpless meow, kept calling her forward. She followed it past the gate, through the drifting snow. Each step felt heavier, but her spirit pushed on. The cry grew louder, desperate, trembling with life, and then she saw it. A shadow under the old oak tree. She moved closer, her lantern shaking in the wind. What she found there made her heart stop. A small bundle of fur, covered in snow, still breathing. The light from her lantern fell upon a heartbreaking sight. A mother cat lay curled around 3 tiny kittens. Their fur was soaked, their bodies shivering uncontrollably. The old woman gasped, dropping to her knees in the snow. "Oh, you poor souls," she whispered, her voice trembling. The mother cat's eyes blinked weakly, trusting yet afraid. The kittens barely moved, huddled close for warmth. Without thinking, the woman took off her scarf. She gently wrapped it around the fragile little family. Her fingers ached from the cold, but her heart burned with urgency. She scooped them up, cradling them against her chest. The warmth of life pulsed faintly through the fabric. Snowflakes melted against her tears as she hurried back home. The wind pushed against her, but she didn't slow down. Her slippers sank deep into the snow, yet she kept moving. Inside her cottage, she placed them near the fire. She rubbed their tiny paws, whispering prayers for each one. The mother cat blinked slowly, as if saying thank you. The kittens mewed softly, a fragile chorus of life. For the first time in years, the woman's cottage wasn't silent. The sound of their breathing filled the air like music. She smiled, wiping her tears with a trembling hand. "Don't worry, little ones," she said softly. "You're home now, and you'll never be cold again." Outside, the storm raged, but inside, love had just been reborn. When dawn came, the storm had finally passed. Sunlight spilled through the frosted windows like gold. The old woman awoke to the soft sound of purring. Her heart fluttered. It wasn't a dream. The mother cat had lifted her head. Weak but alive, the kittens, tiny and pink-nosed, nestled close together. Their fur glowed in the morning light. The woman smiled, her wrinkles deepening with joy. She warmed milk on the stove, humming an old lullaby. Each small meow felt like a heartbeat echoing in her soul. She fed them carefully with a spoon. Drop by drop, the mother cat licked her hand in silent gratitude. The warmth of that moment melted years of loneliness. Her empty home finally had life. Again, she placed a soft blanket by the fire for them to rest. The kittens snuggled closer, safe and content. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of healing. In their survival, she found a reason to live again. She whispered, "You saved me too, didn't you?" The fire crackled in reply, as if agreeing. Outside, the snow glistened like diamonds. The world seemed softer, kinder, somehow alive again. The woman sat beside them, holding her cup of tea, and for the first time in years, she wasn't drinking it alone. The cold had finally left her heart. Days turned into weeks, and the bond grew stronger. The kittens learned to play, chasing shadows on the wooden floor. Their tiny paws left prints on her heart. The mother cat followed the old woman everywhere she went. In the kitchen, she brushed against her legs, purring loudly. At night, the cats curled beside her in bed, warming her soul. Her laughter returned, soft but real. Neighbors noticed the change and often smiled as they passed. The old woman began baking again, her house smelling of cinnamon. She knitted tiny blankets for her furry family, each one in a different color, each one full of love. The cats became her reason to wake up every morning. The once empty cottage now pulsed with life and light. The loneliness that had haunted her was gone. In its place grew something pure, unconditional. Love. The cats didn't care about her wrinkles or age. They saw only kindness, warmth, and a gentle heart. Sometimes she'd whisper to them, "You were sent to me." The mother cat would nuzzle closer as if to agree. The fire never went out again after that day. Every evening, the sound of purring filled her home, and as snow fell outside, she smiled softly to herself. Winter could no longer touch her soul because love had finally come home to stay. Word of her rescue spread through the small town. Children came by to see the miracle cats of winter. They brought food, toys, and laughter to her doorstep. The old woman welcomed them with cookies and warm smiles. She told the story of how she found the cats that night. The children listened, wide-eyed, imagining the snowy rescue. "And didn't you get scared?" one little girl asked. The woman smiled. "Love is stronger than fear, dear." The mother cat lay proudly on a blanket by the fire. Her kittens played nearby, chasing a ball of yarn. The scene looked like something out of a fairy tale. Even the mailman began stopping by just to peek inside. Her lonely home had become a place of joy and hope. People started calling her Grandma. Snowheart, the name made her laugh. But it also made her eyes glisten. She had once been forgotten. Now she was loved again. And it all began with one act of kindness in a snowstorm. The cats had brought her not just warmth, but community love had multiplied, rippling through hearts beyond her own. The coldest night had birthed the warmest bond. Every purr, every laugh, every smile carried a memory. Of the night she followed a sound in the snow, of the moment she chose compassion over comfort, and of the miracle that turned her winter into spring. Her heart, once frozen, now bloomed with life again. As the weeks passed, the town decided to honor her act of compassion. They called it the Winter Festival of Kindness. Snowflakes glimmered like silver dust under lantern light. Children built snowmen wearing knitted scarves from the old. Woman, she walked through the crowd, holding a small kitten in her arms. Everywhere she went, smiles followed her. The mayor gave a small speech about the power of love, but she only smiled humbly and looked down at the kitten. No one should be left out in the cold, she whispered softly. People clapped, moved by her simple truth. The mother cat sat on the stage beside her, proud and calm. Her kittens mewed, capturing every heart in the crowd. The townsfolk collected donations for the local animal shelter. What began as one rescue had become a wave of kindness. Tears filled her eyes as she realized what love can create. It multiplies, spreading warmth in ways unseen. Children handed her handmade cards, each saying thank you. She tucked them close to her chest, her heart swelling with joy. For the first time, she didn't feel like just an old woman. She felt like a part of something beautiful and alive. The snow fell gently, but it didn't feel cold anymore. The world had changed, not outside, but within her heart. She whispered, "You saved me, little ones," and the kitten purred, as if to answer, "You saved us too." That night, the snow glowed with the warmth of love reborn. The months rolled by, and winter finally gave way to spring. Flowers bloomed where snow once rained. The cottage garden, once barren, now danced with color. The cats played in the sunlight, chasing butterflies and joy. The old woman tended to her flowers, humming softly. The air smelled of life, fresh, warm, forgiving. She watched the kittens grow into strong, graceful cats. They no longer feared the world. They embraced it. Each morning, they'd follow her to the porch for breakfast. Their playful meows became her favorite music. She often thought of that stormy night and smiled, how close they had all come to losing hope, and how love had turned it all around. The garden became a sanctuary for her and her little family. She added a small wooden sign by the gate. "Love rescued us here." Visitors from other towns stopped by just to see the miracle. She never charged, never boasted, just welcomed them warmly. Sometimes she'd say, "The smallest lives teach us the biggest lessons." Her heart, once tired, now felt young again. The cats, once abandoned, had found their forever home, and she, once forgotten, had found her reason to live. The seasons had changed, but her love stayed eternal, no longer bound by loss. She was free, alive, whole, and every purr reminded her miracles truly exist. All it takes is one act of kindness to start them. Years passed, and age began to slow her steps. The cats still followed her everywhere, her faithful shadows. Her hair turned silver like the snow that once changed her life. One winter morning, She sat by the window watching flakes fall again. The fire glowed softly, casting halos of light around the room. Her cats curled beside her, warm and content. She smiled, whispering, "You came to me on a night like this." Tears glistened in her eyes. But they weren't sad. They were filled with gratitude for every meow, every sunrise. She wrote a small note and placed it on the mantel. It read, "If anyone finds this home, please take care of them. They are my family, my heart." That night, she closed her eyes with peace and love in her heart. The cat stayed beside her, purring softly till dawn. The next morning, the villagers found her, smiling, serene. The mother cat sat on her lap, as if guarding her one last time. Snow fell gently outside, wrapping the cottage in white, but inside the warmth remained, eternal and pure. The villagers took the cats in, as she had wished. Her story became legend, the tale of love in the snow. Each winter, children light candles by her old oak tree and whisper, "Thank you, Grandma Snowheart." The cats still roam that garden, free and loved, because love never dies. It only changes form. And every snowflake that falls carries her memory home again. Love doesn't always arrive in grand gestures or golden boxes. Sometimes it comes wrapped in fur, shivering in the snow. One act of kindness can heal years of loneliness. It can turn silence into laughter and loss into purpose. The old woman thought she was rescuing them, but in truth, they were rescuing her. Her heart found warmth again, not through wealth or people, but through compassion and courage to care. Kindness never fades. It echoes through generations. It teaches us that no creature is too small to matter. The teen storm that once froze her world became her greatest blessing. Because love, in any form, is life's most powerful miracle, and sometimes all it takes is listening to a cry in the cold to remember that even the smallest lives can change everything. Where love lives, winter never truly wins.